today we're going to be talking about kingdom people doing kingdom activity in their community, talking shop at the shop. And today we have Sharon Miner. Sharon, how are you doing today?
I am doing fabulous today, Homer. Every day's a good day.
Oh, yeah, it is. I'm doing great. It's a huge honor to be sitting across this table with you.
Uh-huh.
You have no idea how cool you are to me. I don't care what anybody else says.
Well,
you're awesome to me. So
I think you're pretty special, too.
Awesome. So, Sharon, today, before we dive any deeper, I just want to ask a question.
Okay.
And I might learn something today.
Okay.
So now I'm sure everyone else is too. Tell us about who is Sharon Miner? Who are you?
Oh, gosh. Well, the first thing that I would say as far as who is Sharon Miner, I'm a child of God.
That's right.
And, sometimes people say that just as a, because it's just kind of cool and all of that. But I really know that that's what I am, And when I think about all of the opportunities that I've had over my life, the different experiences and so forth, God was always leading and guiding me right to this moment for such a time as this. And one of the things as I look back over my opportunities, in seventh grade, I knew I wanted to be in politics. Isn't that crazy?
That's awesome.
In seventh grade,
Wow.
And so, long story short, I ended up going to work as I got, older. I went to college, dropped out, for reasons that's a whole nother story. Well, it had everything to do with racism, all of a sudden, you felt like you didn't belong, which was, anyway, that's a whole nother story. But anyway, I found myself going to work for a gentleman and working for the Texas House of Representatives.
Wow.
And he was a state representative, which was a really wonderful experience. And then I also have worked for Senator Teel Bivins, the late Senator Teel Bivins, which was probably my most life-changing job I've ever had, And I also did an internship with Congressman Mac Thornberry.
Nice.
So I was in politics for 30 years, just a real long time. And then the next thing I know, when Senator Bivins went on to be ambassador to Sweden, I found myself going, okay, what now,
Yeah.
And I ended up being executive director of leadership Amarillo and Canyon.
That is so cool.
And then I went to work for an international business consultant and helped him write books and traveled around the United States doing development for companies like Kraft Foods and for, PetSmart, all these. It was really cool. It was really cool. And then I also had the awesome opportunity of traveling the Pacific Rim with the United States Air Force, chaplain service, teaching leadership. And that took me to Hawaii, to Guam, to Okinawa, to Japan, and to Korea. And so it's just been crazy. And then the next thing I know, I'm director of development for Martha's Home. But you know what, Homer, I got to be honest with you. The reason why that is so significant, because if you just think about all of those different jobs, what the Lord was doing was moving me in and out of people groups.
Yeah.
Teaching me how to relate, how to not judge.
That's so good.
By what we see or by what we think we know. Yeah. And in turn, because of all of that wonderful experience that I got to have, I'm now at Martha's Home, and for 20 years I've also done volunteer work for women in recovery at the Downtown Women's Center. And it's just most rewarding. Other than my husband and my wonderful son, I can think of nothing else more wonderful in my life.
That is so awesome. I love that. You're a celebrity. You toured, you did all the fun stuff. That is so cool. Like, can you give us just some examples of how did you manage in all of that, I mean, I'm sure you had to deal with some crazy times, some crazy, just people, stuff like that. Like, how did you manage to stay within those like Christian boundaries, keep your faith, stay consistent in who you are?
Well, the truth of the matter is, I wouldn't have been able to do it without my faith. Especially, I went to work for Senator Bivins twice. After he was ambassador to Sweden, he came back home because he was sick. And what was really cool about that, and I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry on the shop, okay? It's not going to happen.
You feel free to do it. You're good.
But when he came back, because he was sick, he called me up just out of the clear blue, and he asked me to come over to his house. And so I went over to his house, and he said to me, Sharon, I've got this disease that they don't know what it is and all of this stuff. And he said, out of everybody who's ever worked for me, you're the person I trust the most. And I need you to come back and, help me, just manage my affairs, for lack of a better word, and that kind of thing. So I went, when I was with him as senator, I was his legislative assistant and district director. And then I went to work back for him as his personal assistant.
Wow.
And the reason why that is so significant is because of the things that the Lord taught me during those 2.5 years with Senator Bivins when he was sick was so powerful. And let me just share just a little bit about, I just can't stress enough to people, enjoy every experience. Don't judge people. Don't think you know everything that you think you know.
That's so good. That is so
because I didn't know what that was all about, going back to work for Senator Bivins, and I was more of an advocate for him because what began to happen in this disease, it was progressive. He was unable to talk sometimes. And for whatever reason, the Lord allowed me the ability to understand every word he said. And so I was with him in all of his family gatherings. I was with him when he went to the doctor. I was with him when he traveled, I was with him when he had people over at his house,
Yeah.
And what was so incredibly crazy about that whole thing is I had the opportunity to be his voice to the President of the United States of America, awesome. Having a small dinner with 12 people. Yeah. And it was just really, really cool. And the reason why I say all of that is because when I would be driving him somewhere, I would just, we'd just talk, Now, he wasn't a man who was a lot of words or anything like that, but he was just highly intellectual, and things had to make sense to him. Yep. It just did, And one day, I had gone to pick him up after church, and after I'd gone to church. And I told him, I said, Senator, I always called him Senator. I said, Senator, man, our pastor just gave the most incredible sermon I've ever heard, Yeah. And he said, wow. He says, that's good. He said, well, maybe sometime I'll go to church with you. Okay. Yeah. Now, here's what most Christians would have done. Well, how about next Sunday? Let's go next Sunday. I can come pick you up and all of this stuff, But I knew that was not the way to do that. He was on his own journey, Well, about 2 weeks later, he says to me while we're driving somewhere, and he says to me, he says, Sharon, he said, do you believe every word of the Bible is truth? And I said, yes, Senator, I do. I said, I believe that it happened, is going to happen, or is happening. I said, but I believe it's truth. I said, now, I don't understand all of it. Yeah. I said, but I certainly believe it's truth. And that was all he said. 2 weeks later, he calls me up, and he says, Sharon, I want you to pick me up for church. I went and I picked him up for church, and he got saved 6 months before he died.
That is so awesome.
So we just never know what the Lord has planned, you know.
right.
I never knew that going to work for the senator, because my degree was in politics, that it had everything to do with that day that I drove him to church 6 months before he passed away.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Man, that is so
I hope
awesome,
I answered that question.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, it's just so cool to hear, like, well, I mean, especially going back to the beginning where you were saying, like, you leaving school, like, I'm sure that was a hard time. And I'm sure you would have never have thought, like, leaving school is going to lead to something like this. And obviously being able to take such a powerful person, right, in such a big position to,
yes,
I mean, to church, right? Like, that's that's not just something that happens. And, you know, especially, like, that's not the typical thing that happens in politics, right? If anything, it's the very opposite is what, you know, society just believes. Like,
exactly.
No politician is in that.
It's crazy. It's crazy because, and I did eventually go back to school and finish my degree. Yeah. Of course, Senator Bivins, when I was working for him as a legislative assistant, allowed me to do that during the day. Cool. I mean, it's just a crazy story. It's just a crazy story. But I did go back to school, you know, and finish up that degree because it was unfinished business for me.
That's awesome.
It was unfinished business. And it was worth every moment of going back. And, you know, and I tell people all the time, you know, this is kind of bleeds into what I do today. At Martha's Home, Martha's Home is a temporary shelter for women and women with children who find themselves homeless. Yeah. And I tell people this all the time. Homeless women come with homeless children.
That's right.
And I'm going to let you guys know, I'm going to let everybody know out there, one of our biggest issues is there are no men. And what I mean by that, in this shelter, every young man we have and every young woman we have, the children, there's no men around. It's all women. And, you know, and I just want people to think about that for just a second. Because how do you raise godly men when there are no godly men around?
That's so good.
You know? Yeah. And so I'm always telling particularly young Christian men and Christian men groups, you know, just come out there and throw a football with them.
Yeah.
You don't have to evangelize, just come let them see, you know. And it's just like, you know, with the Downtown Women's Center, whenever I do group with these ladies in recovery, you know, every once in a while I'll take my husband, about every 2 months, I'll take Jerry. And the reason why is because they need to see what a godly man looks like.
That's right.
And how he treats his wife, you know? Yeah. And so being a Christian is more than just going to church.
Yes.
And reading the Bible. It is all of that, you know, but my gosh, you got to get your hands dirty.
That's right. Yeah.
You gotta get your hands dirty. And if you do that, when we do that, that's what changes the world.
No, for sure.
That's when things change.
Yeah, no, I believe that so much. Probably one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard in my life was, "Don't become so heavenly minded that you become worldly worthless."
Yes.
And I love it. That's not just what you're saying, but that's your challenge to, especially to us as men, like, let's step up, let's answer the call, you know? Because like you said, being a Christian is not just about going to church on Sunday or, you know, reading your Bible or, you know, putting your church's a sticker on your car, but it's about living it, right? And, you know, living this thing that Jesus called us to, you know, and that's so cool that you're doing that. Yeah. You know, man, I want to shift gears just a little bit. Okay. Just because I know this story, and it is so inspiring to me, you know, and it is, I mean, it's been such a big thing to me, but I want people to hear this. I want you to talk about, I mean, we're talking like this was 2018. Let's talk about when this first started with you, about, you know, you needing, you know, you being on the donors list and transplant. Like, can you just walk us through how that started all the way up until, I mean, 2018 when it happened, right? Like, I just think it's such an awesome story. But I feel like this is just an opportunity for you to share and inspire somebody, give somebody hope, right? Mm-hmm. So can you please share that with us?
Yes, absolutely. My family, mom and dad, my brothers, we're a very, very close family. And in 2014, this is significant to the story. Mm-hmm. In 2014, my oldest brother suddenly died. In 2015, my youngest brother suddenly died. In 2016, I was diagnosed with stage 5 chronic kidney disease. And the doctor told me, I'm one of those overachievers, so I skipped 1 through 4. I'm just like, hey, let's do it right if we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And what was so crazy was the doctor had said, we can do 3 things, one of 3 things. Put you on the list for a kidney transplant, go on dialysis, or we can just keep you comfortable, And I'm embarrassed to tell this part of the story, but it's the truth, Well, the first thing that happened after I got the diagnosis was the Lord gave me a scripture, okay? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was Hebrews 10:23. Let us not waver in our confession of hope, for he who promised is faithful.
Come on.
Now listen to me, guys. He didn't tell me what to do. He didn't tell me to go to the elders. He didn't tell me to run around the building 7 times, drop down to my knees and pray, do the, Hail Mary, full of grace. He told me who he was.
That's right. Come on.
He reminded me of who he was, know. And it's still to that day, I get cold chills just that he was so specific about what he said.
Yeah.
So anyway, I go on the list. And most of the time, when people need a transplant, it's 3, 4, 5 years.
Yeah.
Mine was like 1 year and 6 months. And what was crazy was for the longest time before I, had the transplant, in the very beginning, I was just, I'm so sick. I was just a big old whiny baby. I'm so embarrassed,
Oh, no, you're good.
And I would cry out to the Lord, what am I going to do, And all I would hear the Holy Spirit say to me was one thing: what do you believe?
Come on.
What do you believe? And then, 3 days later, I'd be crying, oh my God, I'm going to die, And God wasn't saying anything except, what do you believe?
So good.
And then one morning I woke up and I was like, what do I believe? And it hit me. By his stripes I am healed. And so I quit confessing that I was sick, and started quoting that verse. Just quoting that verse. Now listen, physically, all I could do was lay in the bed pretty much. And then get up. I always went to a group. I always did Bible study. Keep doing the things that God has called you to do.
That's right.
So I kept doing that. And then after Bible study, I would go back home and just, kind of just lay in the bed, because that's all I could do. Demons were visiting me at night, and Jerry and Sharon would come in that bedroom and just lay hands on me and pray and pray and pray. And those boys would get to speaking in tongues, and the whole bit. I'm not awesome. Making this up. It's That's so awesome. Cool. It's so cool. So anyway, this is funny. I got the call. One day I got the call, and they said, we've found you a kidney. And I told them, it was in Dallas, of course. Mm-hmm. I told them I couldn't be there because I had to teach a class. And the nurse was like, Sharon, make a phone call. We need to have you here. So anyway, we hop in the car, get everything ready, and we take off down to Dallas, and I have a kidney transplant. And normally what happens is, you have to go on dialysis to kind of jumpstart that kidney. It started immediately, and still to this day, it's going strong. And I know this sounds so crazy. Y'all just think I'm nuts, but I don't care. I believe that God knows the end from the beginning, or the beginning from the end. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Other words, he knows everything.
Yeah.
That day that I was diagnosed with COVID and needed a kidney, he knew it. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I believe that God created an angel specifically for me is because normally after you get the transplant and everything, you try to get in touch with the family through the institution, that did the transplant and everything like that. And still to this day, no response.
Wow.
No response. None whatsoever. Not from anybody. And one of the reasons why I also believe that is because, well, I'm God's favorite. And
that's right. You're not lying.
But one of the reasons why I really do believe that is every time I go to the doctor, even the last time that I went to have my regular checkup, my doctor said to me, "Your kidney is killing it." He said, awesome. "Your one kidney is better than my 2 kidneys." It's just so every time I go to the doctor, my kidney number is not a little low or a little high. It's perfect. Literally perfect. And it's never missed a beat. It's never missed a beat. And so his name is Joshua. Yeah, like Joshua in the Bible. Come on with it.
Come on, Joshua.
Yes, his name is Joshua. And it's funny, even the last time the doctor, he was like, "How's Joshua doing?" And he goes, "It's bad when I know your body part's name." And I said, "Hey, listen, yeah. Joshua is a gift from God."
That's right.
And I know that. And nobody can tell me any different.
Yeah.
Does it make any sense? I don't care what anybody says. Nobody can tell me any different.
Yeah. So this happens in 2018. Mm-hmm. Now let's fast forward. Yeah. To 2020.
2020.
Talk about that a little bit.
When everybody was getting the virus, Yeah. It was really bad. It was really bad. And, all you ever heard was, if you've had a transplant or anything, you don't want to get this. Because that was pre-shot and all of that stuff, It was just nuts. And, there's so many scriptures that always go through my head when I'm talking, but I think about that scripture that says, the small, still voice, And I just kept hearing the Lord say to me that I needed to go to Oklahoma to visit my mom and dad. Uh-huh. And so, Jerry and Sharon and I, we hopped in the car and, took off. And I had planned to stay a couple of weeks with them and everything like that.
Yeah.
And so we take off and we go there. And lo and behold, while I'm there, I get COVID. Jerry and Sharon came back. I got COVID. My dad got COVID. My mom got COVID. Jerry and Shawn got COVID. Well, they were in Amarillo. I was in Oklahoma. Yeah. And what was crazy about that, Homer, was God is just so cool. He's just the coolest dude. Anyway, originally, when I was going to have the transplant, I was going to have it done in Oklahoma City. Mm-hmm. So all of my workup had been done in Oklahoma City. Now listen, when you are going to have a transplant, they know how much earwax you have. I mean, they know everything about your body, you know, everything, because they've done every x-ray and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So when I get to Oklahoma City, they got everything they need. They didn't have to, do any kind of, they had every bit of information they needed, even though I had the transplant in Dallas. Yeah. They had everything, Wow. So anyway, as soon as I get to Oklahoma City, this is a little funny part about that, because my parents live in Enid. And so they had to transport me from Enid to Oklahoma City, which is about an hour and a half, you know. Well, about 45 minutes into the trip, all of a sudden, the ambulance starts really speeding up and turns on the siren and all of that stuff, you know. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Well, I didn't know that my oxygen was like a 52 at that point.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I was crashing bad. Yeah. And then when I got there and see God's protection, his blood was upon me because I had no idea. I mean, I knew I couldn't breathe, but I didn't think I was dying, you know. Yeah. And so anyway, as soon as I get there, now keep in mind, this was in the height of COVID. Yes. So all you see is people in blue suits, hazmat suits, and it's just, it was just eerie. And the first thing they said to me, we're going to have to put you on a ventilator. You're crashing.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. And all I know is things come back to me slowly.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is there are things that happen now in my life that the Lord had showed me while I was there, you know. Mm-hmm. And I remember definitely having a beautiful encounter with Jesus. I know it was Jesus, not because, you know, he's portrayed like, blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy from Hollywood. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was his presence.
Yeah.
His presence in every way. And we were sitting outside of a place, okay, on a bench, you know, and I knew that just beyond the bench, just, you know, on the other side was just this absolutely beautiful place that I can't even put into words. I mean, literally, I just don't have the words for it. And the time that I was sitting there talking to Jesus, he wasn't telling me what to do. He was giving me options.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Mm-hmm. He was giving me options. He wasn't saying, you know, come on home, daughter, or anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. It was he gives us options. Yeah. Even here on this side, he gives us options, you know, and I don't think we realize that. And so anyway, the next thing I know is my eyes just pop open, you know, and I hear this little voice say to me in my ear, "You're breathing on your own." And I didn't think anything about that. I mean, and I was calm. I was just at peace. I was calm. I didn't really know where I was, but it didn't seem to matter. Yeah. If that makes any sense. Yeah. And then about 10 minutes later, the doctor came in there, and all you could see, keep in mind, people have these hazmats on, so every conversation is through people's eyes. Yeah. You know, doesn't the Bible say that the eyes to the soul is through the eyes?
Yeah.
Come on, you're a pastor, you know. Come on with it. Say it.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying, you know. So you're talking through eyes.
Yeah, your eyes.
Your eyes, which is really a beautiful thing in itself, you know. We've really lost the ability to really communicate in the manner in which God has given us the ability to communicate. Yep. But the doctor came in and he said to me, and you could just see it in his eyes, that he had seen so much death. Yeah. Are you with me?
Yeah.
That he said to me, he said, "You're a miracle." And you could just see it in his eyes. He says, "You're breathing on your own. You're a miracle." And you could just see it in every person that came in there, every nurse, everybody. Yeah. They had seen so much death that to have someone live during that time was just unbelievable. So I tell people this all the time, you know, when I got to a certain place, and this was during the transplant, and I carried it through, still carry it through today. I had to reach a place, you guys, where I had to really determine that healing was certain. Now I'm about to cry. It was either going to be on this side or it was going to be on that side. Wow. But it was certain. That's what I knew, because I knew my God. I knew my Jesus. Healing was certain. And so I was good. I was good no matter what. So I think that's why I just had this peace when I came out of the coma, whatever that thing was, that COVID puts you in, whatever that was, But all I know is everybody's on their own journey.
That's right.
And everybody has a story. And your story is not for you. Yeah. It's to help somebody else.
Come on.
Because people are struggling. And particularly in this day and time, I was thinking about this morning, where people don't know what to believe.
Yeah.
If they see the news or hear the news or see something or talk to somebody, I'm like, what would Jesus do?
Yes.
That's all you got to know.
That's right.
And if you know that, if you know what Jesus would do, if you know what Jesus would say, if you know how Jesus would act, you're going to be all right. I say this all the time. Sean and Jerry's heard me say this the whole time. Oh, hope I don't make anybody mad, But, in the news a lot right now is all about abortion and just a lot of stuff,
Yeah, no, it's been chaos.
And I say this all the time. What does pro-life mean to Jesus? What does pro-life mean to Jesus? I think it means everybody. Yeah. I think he wants to see everybody live. Yeah. Unborn, born, old, young. What does pro-life mean to Jesus? Yeah. And if we can keep Jesus as our guide, as our example, we're going to be okay. Now we may not do what we want to do, but if we do what Jesus wants to do, we're going to be all right. So that's why with Martha's Home, I feel so, I don't know. Yeah. I'm just excited about Martha's Home.
That is so awesome. And I'm sure those people are super blessed to have you.
Well, our deal is, thank you, sweetheart. I just cried. Our deal is we keep them in education,
Yeah.
And what we have to understand, you guys, is, I'm sorry, I get so emotional.
Oh, you're good.
People don't know what they don't know.
Yes.
Not everybody grew up like Sharon Minor, with a mama and a daddy and an Air Force family. And, mom and dad always said you can do whatever you want to do. That everybody didn't grow up that way.
Yeah.
And I've learned that through the years, some of the things that we do to people is just disgusting. I'll never forget one young lady. I'll never forget this. God, this just makes me cry. If you saw her, she has tattoos all over her body. Okay. If she walked in here, I don't know, there's a lot of people who would probably shun her, but she's one of the most godly women I've ever met.
That's awesome.
And her tattoos tell her story, see? And what people don't know is at age 5, her mom and dad set her up on the bar, shot her in the neck with a heroin needle, and said, "Welcome to the family business."
Wow.
And so for her to have gone through all of this since age 5, you guys, and Jesus has turned her around.
Yeah.
And, she was in a gang, and she was an enforcer, and she was the one who, if you didn't give me my money, she was coming after you, all of that. But don't tell me God can't.
That's right.
He just is amazing.
Yes.
Anyway, I get emotional when I talk about these girls because they're just doing such good things. And it's only because somebody takes the time and just goes, "You know what? I'll walk with you.
Yeah.
I'll walk with you.
Yeah.
I will. Until you don't want me there no more. Call me anytime. Tell them all the time that I'm the type of person that if there's a roadblock, we'll knock that door down.
That's right.
It's a yes until it's a no.
Yes.
So we have great partners, like Amarillo College,
Yes.
that helps in testing our ladies. And I tell people all the time, Amarillo College is Amarillo's best kept secret. It's one of the top 5 community colleges in the nation. I don't know if people know that.
I didn't know that. That is so cool.
Yeah. And so what they do is they have partnered with us, and they test our ladies to let them know, if they're college ready, and help us with that and all of that stuff, And, what we don't understand, guys, is minimum wage isn't going to get it.
No.
It's not going to get it. And self-sufficiency, is not HUD housing. It's not government assistance,
Yeah.
And so we have to help people get a livable wage.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not some, pie in the sky person who believes that, everybody's going to, do what they're going to do. But, there are those who, if you just point them in the right direction,
Yes.
if you just let them know all things are possible to them who believe, and that Jesus is your answer. I don't care what your question is, he's your answer.
Right.
And the way people get to Jesus may not be the way that you came to Jesus or the way I came to Jesus, So we just have to be that to folks and just realize that we're here for a purpose, and that purpose is not to get a new Cadillac.
That's right. That's very true.
Although if you guys would like for me to have one, is that what I'm going to get paid?
I mean, we'll figure that out. Awesome. Well, Sharon, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story and what you've been doing in the community. Man, they're definitely in great hands at Martha's house, and man, I'm super just proud of you, but I'm super humbled just to be able to call you friend. Thank you so much for your time, for coming in. Keep going, and if there's any way that we can help, I love that you're challenging us as men, and I hope that we could step up and continue to help you guys further, what the dream is, the vision of Martha's house is. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Now, what I would say to all of you young people out there, and young people is anybody younger than me, okay? Find some place to serve, okay? Don't be afraid, because that's where your growth is going to take place. The word says, as you do unto the least of these, you have done it unto me. And watch and see if God won't use that to his glory for your service. And watch and see how you will become the person that God has created you to be on this earth.